Well, PSG Financial Services Limited has announced a robust 24.7% increase in recurring headline earnings per share for the year ending February 28, 2025, driven by favourable equity markets and a strong advice-led business model. Joining me now is CEO Francois Gouws to discuss how the company's strategic investments in technology and talent, alongside a 15.7% rise in assets under management, position PSG for sustained long-term growth. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The 24.7% increase in recurring headline earnings per share is impressive. Can you elaborate on how the advice-led business model specifically contributed to this performance under challenging operating conditions?
Thank you very much. The conditions have been difficult not only in South Africa but globally for a variety of different reasons. You've had two wars internationally, you've had tariffs, so a complicated international environment. And then locally, you've had issues with a lack of growth. And often when you have high volatility and uncertainty, then what clients want is they want good advice, and that's what PSG provides. So, we've got 1,000 advisors across South Africa and 260 offices, and we can, provide that advice to each one of those locations, supported by, of course, the strong technology, know-how, and so on that we centrally provide to the advisors.
Total assets under management grew by 15.7% to 470.7 billion. What strategies drove the strong inflows, particularly the 4.5 billion rand for PSG Asset Management? And how do you plan on sustaining this momentum?
So the new asset flows come in via advisory business. So that was almost 20 billion rand. And that's based on the advices I've mentioned. And then the asset management business specifically, I think our asset manager is a value-orientated manager. So we've tried to steer away from the large technology firms that have rallied over the last number of years. And we've generally generated very good returns in terms of performance at adequate levels of risk. And I think, that's what underpinned the flows. So, we're very pleased with both the flows that we've seen on the wealth business and the asset management business.
PSG Insure achieved a 9.2% increase in growth written premium and at least a 12.7% net underwriting margin. What role did your reinsurance program and underwriting practices play in the success? Are there plans to expand the segment further?
So underwriting conditions have been tough. You've had climate change, you've had political uncertainty, which has caused had a whole lot of consequences in underinvestment in infrastructure, potholes, and so on have been a problem. But in general, I think there's been price increases, which, as you say, has been driven by the international markets. That's fed through into the local markets. And things over the last couple of months have started to improve, albeit very slowly and off a low base. But that's, I think, a combination of those factors that contributed to the better results that we produced, particularly in the last 6 months. But it's very early days, and we'll monitor circumstances and see how things go forward.
Now, performance fees rose to 3.7% of headline earnings from 2.8% last year. How significant were these fees to PSG Asset Management's 36.9% increase in recurring headline earnings?
Yeah, so the overall contribution of performance fees was about 3.74% for the overall firm. So it wasn't really that significant, but it was driven by the fact that in local markets, particularly after the local elections, you had a very strong domestic equity market, and the international markets also did quite well. And that's really what was the kind of root cause of the improvement in performance fees.
You also mentioned an 18.6% increase in technology and infrastructure spending. Can you provide specific examples of how these investments are enhancing PSG's operations?
So, we at PSG believe, in order to generate good returns, you have to invest constantly. And we've been investing at a very rapid rate for a long period of time. If you just take the domestic economy, I think the crisis that we have in electricity and logistics and water and so on has been as a consequence of chronic underinvestment. And so what we at PSG try and do is to consistently invest in our business through improving our processes, but also, taking account of regulatory change and then new technologies. So we invest in constant improvement of our processes, and then we try and roll out new projects. We're building an international platform for funds, and then there's a variety of other 102 projects that we're busy rolling out at the present moment. But it's really an investment into the future and trying to make sure that you sustain the returns and not just have short-term good returns.
Thanks very much. That was the CEO, Francois Gouws of PSG Financial Services, on their company results.